4 days ago, the Prime Minister of India stood at a rally in Hyderabad and said something nobody expected. He told Indians to postpone foreign travel for at least a year, to revive work from home, to use metro and public transport, and to cut petrol and diesel use wherever possible. The last time we heard language like that, it was March 2020, and it was COVID. This is not COVID, but the message is eerily similar. And sitting right in the middle of all this is Indian aviation. An industry that was supposed to be booming, an industry that was supposed to be making flying cheaper for every Indian. So let's ask the honest question, is flying in India actually getting cheaper, or have we been sold a story? India is the third largest domestic aviation market in the world. Over 150 million passengers flew domestically last year. Hundreds of new aircrafts are on order, new airports are opening, and the government is talking about connecting every tier 2 city. On paper, everything is growing. But here is what is also true. Domestic passenger traffic growth for FY26 is now projected at just 0 to 3%. Fuel surcharges have been added on top of your ticket. Airlines are already adjusting pricing strategies, and some have introduced fuel surcharges to offset the elevated ATF costs. The growth story and the passenger experience are two very different things right now, and let's go through them both. Part 1. What's happening to fares right now? Let's start with the number that matters the most, what you are actually paying. ATF, the jet fuel that powers every Indian flight, is currently at around 1,04,927 rupees per kiloliter for domestic airlines. In April alone, it jumped 25%. The government had to cap the increase at 25% because without intervention, the spike would have been far steeper. Jet fuel prices have nearly doubled since earlier this year, driven by the West Asia conflict and supply disruptions through the Strait of Hormuz. Every time fuel costs go up, airlines have two choices: either absorb the loss or pass it on to you. And Indian Airlines right now cannot afford to absorb anything. The Indian aviation sector is projected to incur net losses of 17 to 18,000 crores in FY26. ICRA has already revised its outlook for the entire industry to negative. So fares are not coming down, they are just going up, and they have more room to go up further. Part 2. The Modi speech and what it actually means. Now let's talk about what the PM said, because it matters directly to aviation. Addressing a public gathering in Hyderabad on May 10th, Modi ji framed the appeal as an economic and national responsibility at a time when rising crude oil prices and global instability are putting pressure on India's foreign exchange reserves. He suggested avoiding non-essential foreign travel, overseas vacations and foreign weddings while promoting domestic tourism and celebrations within India. He also asked people to revive work from home and online meetings, systems that in his words proved effective during the pandemic. Now here is the thing, the appeal is specifically about foreign travel, international flights, overseas holidays, spending the forex abroad. He is not telling you to not fly from Mumbai to Delhi. But the signal is significant. The government is under real economic pressure from the West Asia crisis. India imports most of its crude oil, and when global prices spike, India feels it in its foreign exchange reserves, in its current account deficit in the rupee. The restrictions on airspace due to geopolitical tensions have forced Indian carriers to adopt longer alternative routing for certain international services, adding hours of flight time on the same routes, burning more fuel per journey. This is not a COVID-level crisis for domestic aviation, but it is the most serious external shock the industry has faced since 2020. And the PM speech is the clearest signal yet that the government knows it. Part 3. The structural problem underneath all of this. Here is what makes this particularly frustrating. India's aviation sector was already structurally expensive before the West Asia crisis hit. We covered the ATF tax problem in detail in our last video. Fuel accounts for 40% of Indian airline costs, one of the highest ratios in the world because of how India taxes jet fuel at both central and state levels. So what you have now is a global crisis landing on top of a broken domestic structure. The fuel was already expensive due to policy, and now it is more expensive due to geopolitics. And the airline that is stuck in the middle has very limited room to protect your fare. Flight cancellations due to airspace closures coupled with higher airfares following the levy of fuel surcharges estimated at 5 to 6% of average ticket prices are expected to weigh on passenger traffic growth. 5 to 6% on your average ticket doesn't sound like much, but on a 6,000 fare to Bangalore, that's 300 to 360 rupees more per seat, per person, per journey in both directions. And this sits on top of the seat selection fees we talked about last week, on top of the convenience charges and on top of the baggage fees. The question of whether flying is getting cheaper in India does not have a single answer. It depends entirely on which part of the cost are you looking at and who is absorbing it. Part 4. Is there any good news? There is some. The government has stepped in with targeted relief. The Ministry of Civil Aviation has capped ATF price hikes for domestic carriers at 25%. The Airports Authority of India has implemented a 25% reduction in landing and parking charges for domestic flights for 3 months. These are real interventions and they are keeping fares from spiking as aggressively as they could have. Passenger load factors remain strong at an estimated 93% in February 2026, which means planes are full, demand is still there, and the airlines have not lost passengers yet. Domestic aviation is actually holding up better than international right now. IPL domestic traffic showed strong performance even as airlines face financial difficulties because operational costs have increased despite stable passenger demand. So the demand side is fine. Indians want to fly, but the problem is entirely on the cost side. And until the fuel crisis stabilizes or India reforms how it taxes jet fuel, that cost pressure is not going anywhere. If you are planning to fly domestically in the next few months, book early. The fare you see today is likely lower than what it will be in 6 to 8 weeks if the fuel situation does not improve. If you are planning an international holiday, the PM's appeal aside, the practical reality is that international fares are under even more pressure than domestic ones right now. Prices for international routes have been raised significantly, reflecting rising global costs. Airlines are passing on every rupee of the ATF spike to international passengers because there is no government cap protecting those fares. And the broader answer to whether flying in India is getting cheaper right now, in May 2026, the honest answer is no. The market is growing, the infrastructure is improving, but the cost of actually getting on a plane has more upward pressure on it today than at any point since the pandemic. India's aviation story has always had this gap between the headline and the experience, between the growth number and what you actually pay at checkout. The West Asia crisis had made that gap impossible to ignore. Here is my question for you. With Modi ji asking people to avoid foreign travel and work from home again, do you think this is the government being genuinely cautious, or is it an admission that the economy is under more stress than we are being told? Tell me in the comments. New video every Thursday at 7 pm. Like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.